Hi folks, Bullseye Strength here. I thought I would talk a little about workout splits and what I've recently discovered is an important and underrated consideration when designing a training split that most people overlook. I will then go on a brief tangent about men's mental health and depression, and what I believe to be some of the most overlooked causes, which, in my opinion, differs considerably from what most people think. Firstly, on the topic of training splits, I have recently altered the way I break up my training so I can hit each muscle group in an unfatigued state. Up until recently, my preferred training splits were upper, lower, and full body. But I found when I got around to my arm isolation work, my biceps and triceps would already be fatigued from the compound pushing and pulling exercises. Training a muscle group that has been partially fatigued as a synergist in another exercise negatively affects the output for that muscle group. For example, when I train my biceps in an unfatigued state, I'm around 15% stronger than when I train my biceps after back, and I've been making better progress on my direct arm work recently. It's too early to gauge how much of an impact this will have on my arm development, but as far as progressive overload goes, so far so good. This method can be implemented on other popular splits, like push-pull legs, by simply putting your bicep training on push day and tricep work on pull day. If training on a bro split, put triceps on back day and biceps on your chest day, as per Dorian Yates in his Blood and Guts program. Another method would be to give your arms their own day. The stronger contractions and ability to use more weight will feel very satisfying if you've become accustomed to training your arms as an afterthought, as I have for years. Now, on the topic of men's mental health and depression, this probably deserves its own video, but I'm not sure how many people would be interested in hearing a hot take on mental health from the owner of a pissant fitness channel, but fuck it. I've suffered from bouts of depression since I was 11 years old due to some shit that went down. I have no intention of trauma dumping on this channel, but trust me, it was heavy. Even since then, anytime I experience hardship or disappointment or disillusionment brought on by life stagnation, I find myself ruminating on that time over a quarter of a century ago. You never think when you're a child that experiences you have will be living in your head rent-free for the rest of your life. I think childhood trauma has a way of immortalizing a part of you at that age. Decades later you have dreams or nightmares that take you back to the event and you completely forget that you're no longer a child. It's fucking nuts. I also believe that the state of our society and the way wealth and opportunity is distributed play a significant role in the growing issue of self-deletion among men. I know this is a grim topic, but this issue is the biggest killer of men under 50 in countries like the UK and the US. It disproportionately affects white middle-aged men, and I am a white British man approaching middle age, so it would be unwise for me not to attempt to understand the factors that may make someone in my demographic feel this way. Personally, I think much of it comes down to expectation. It often dawns on men by the age of 40 to 50 that they're probably not going to be a big breakout success like their heroes, or embody the rags to riches story they've seen in Hollywood movies like Rocky. This epiphany hits like a ton of bricks with devastating consequences to a man's self-worth. There's a quote by the late US comedian George Carlin. He says, "It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it." I'm not saying it's bad to have ambition, and I think accountability is what many young men are missing, but I can also see how excessive accountability can easily turn to guilt. I've unfortunately known a couple of people who have taken their own lives. The shared trait was that, as well as being miserable, they were racked with guilt. This is a potentially deadly pitfall with the growing trend of ultra-conservatism promoted by wealthy influencers and popular among many young men. It promotes the idea that you are solely responsible for the circumstances you find yourself in. That seems like a virtuous and empowering philosophy in theory, and may be applicable to some, but in many instances it's just salt in the wounds for those who have worked hard and haven't had that intangible factor that's present in almost all major success stories, luck. As a regular citizen, working a blue-collar job, the odds are massively stacked against you. Just the ability to get a job that pays enough to be able to support yourself, let alone a family and buy a house, is becoming more difficult, with wages depreciating, the cost of living soaring, and the labor market becoming more and more competitive. It was claimed that free market capitalism would create competition between employers for workers that would drive up wages and working conditions for employees. The opposite has happened. Just getting a regular factory job has become like entering Dragon's Den. With multiple knockout rounds, you're pitted against other applicants for the opportunity to work a dead-end minimum wage job that nobody really wants, but are coerced into competing for by the threat of destitution. The feeling of inadequacy it creates is exacerbated when you have a family depending on you, as the metaphorical knife at your throat is also at theirs. The point of this video isn't to black pill young men, it's to give a realistic expectation so if their dreams of wealth and status don't come to fruition, they don't become yet another grim statistic.